Hey guys, JV here with another episode of Journey to Andromeda. This time we're focusing purely on the Andromeda Initiative project, which plays an important role in the narrative of the next Mass Effect. We'll cover what the initiative is, why it was started, and what to expect from this project. I've gathered as much information as possible on the subject, but if more information is released before launch, I will update you all in the comment section below. Also, I'm trying to avoid spoilers in this video, so anything that might spoil the story that hasn't been explicitly revealed by BioWare won't be in this video. Before we start, just a quick reminder that I'm uploading Andromeda content every other day on this channel ahead of release and non-stop daily once the game actually comes out. So if that's something you're interested in, be sure and subscribe. The Andromeda Initiative project was founded in 2176, and as a whole, the goal for the initiative is to send scientists, explorers, and colonists on a one-way trip to settle the resource-rich frontier of the Andromeda Galaxy, and also to eventually create a reliable route between the Andromeda Galaxy and the Milky Way. To give some context on the timing of this event in the Mass Effect timeline, the first Mass Effect game, Eden Prime, Commander Shepard fighting off the Reapers for the first time, that all takes place in 2183, which is 7 years prior. That means, and this is also confirmed by developers, that the Andromeda Initiative was not founded because of the Reapers. The Reapers are not the reason that the initiative is even happening, because this stuff was going on 7 years before we even discovered the Reapers. The initiative is founded by a human named Jean Garson, and we don't know much else about her. We do see her in one or two of the trailers, but that's about it. We don't know if we're going to meet her in the game or not, but that is who founded the initiative, and the initiative is backed by powerful benefactors, people that put their money into this project, and it has grown substantially since its start in 2176. Some additional background info: the initiative is a civilian multi-species project that is operating independently from the Systems Alliance, so this has nothing to do with the Alliance. This is completely separate. Before launch, the initiative's long-range scanners have already identified potentially habitable planets that are in the Helios cluster of the Andromeda Galaxy, and these habitable planets are going to be called habitats. We're going to visit each of them, as we assume, and they are called golden worlds, places that humanity will be able to colonize and actually complete the mission of the Andromeda Initiative. Even with light speed and Mass Effect fields and all of that fun stuff, the journey is going to take 600 years, so once we actually make it to Andromeda, it'll be 600 years later, and in order to survive that journey, all of the travelers will be in cryostasis pods aboard all of the ships. As far as we know, the ships that are involved in the Andromeda Initiative involve the Nexus, which is kind of the command hub. We're going to spend a whole section of this video on the Nexus, and then 4 other arcs, and we'll also talk about those arcs. We know that the Andromeda Initiative launches and leaves the Milky Way Galaxy in 2185, and so in terms of the timeline, that lands between the events of Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3. So if you're one of those people that's hopeful about seeing Shepard or some other character from the original trilogy, if that character was in Mass Effect 3, then it doesn't make sense that they would be on any of the ships, snuck on one of the other arcs or something like that. It doesn't make sense. However, if they're in Mass Effect 1 and 2 and not in 3, possibly, maybe they could be. We don't know. Now let's talk about the Nexus. We have a lot of information about the Nexus, so strap in for this. First off, the Avena VI, which is a virtual intelligence. It's a hologram that's in the form of a Sara. If you played the original trilogy, you know who this is. She's actually returning. It's a returning character, and she's going to be on the Nexus for information. So if you want to learn anything about the Nexus, she's going to be at different terminals for you to turn on and ask any questions that you might have. The Nexus as a whole is inspired by the Citadel, and it serves as the command center and temporary home for everyone that is traveling to Andromeda. We know that the Nexus has a more diverse crew than each of the arcs. Each of the arcs we'll talk about in a second, but the Nexus is really just kind of a holistic look at everyone who is traveling to Andromeda. And we do know that most of the primary functions are available for the Nexus, but we also know that there's more construction scheduled for the Nexus after arrival. So depending on what happens, the events, if anything goes wrong, just remember that the Nexus isn't technically finished. There's more to be constructed. We also know that the 4 arcs carrying the bulk of the people coming to Andromeda can dock at the Nexus for additional power and storage. Through one of the initiative briefings, we also get a look at some of the different sections of the Nexus. So we have an archives section, which is supposed to teach new races about the Milky Way and make sure that we have kind of an information codex to reference to. There's a hydroponics gardens area. I guess that's supposed to be comforting for people that are aboard a giant spaceship. There's a vortex lounge, which is kind of like like one of the many bars and kind of clubs that were in previous games. I'm sure that's what that is inspired by. There's an operations center, which is the central security and Pathfinder headquarters where the Pathfinders of each arc can come together and kind of, figure out what they're doing in terms of colonization and collaborate on all Pathfinder stuff. And then finally, we have a science labs area for all of the research and development that is supposed to be going on with Andromeda. I sincerely hope that they nail the feeling of the Citadel within the Nexus. I hope this is kind of a hub where all of these different races come together and, socialize and conduct business, diplomacy, all of that stuff, the same feeling that we had from the Citadel in the original trilogy. I hope that's what they get with the Nexus. We also have some information on the Nexus leadership, 3 important people that will be aboard the Nexus. So first off is Director of Colonial Affairs Foster Addison. This person's job is to oversee colonization logistics, making sure all settlements are up and running and colonists actually have a place to live in Andromeda. The Nexus Superintendent is Nakmor Kesh. She is a female Krogan, and she's part of the core team of station engineers who built the Nexus, and she's responsible for station upkeep and ensuring all facilities remain in working order. Finally, we have Nexus Security Sloane Kelly. She is an Alliance-trained soldier, and she's responsible for all security initiatives. We actually see her in footage on some Andromedan planet where she turns rogue against Ryder, Sara Ryder in this case, and leads some sort of outlaw group. So something happens with Sloane Kelly. We don't know what happens yet, but clearly there's a problem with her. That's all with the Nexus for now. Let's move our attention to the arcs. So as I mentioned, there are 4 arcs that also leave with the Nexus in 2185. There is 1 arc for each Citadel Council race. So there's a human arc, a Turian arc, a Solarian arc, and finally an Asari arc. Aboard each of the arcs is a Pathfinder and the Pathfinder team. So we'll talk more about Pathfinders in a second. Each of these arcs holds 20,000 of their respective arc race. So for example, on Arc Hyperion, you have 20,000 humans. And also each arc has a scout ship. For Arc Hyperion, the human arc, that's going to be the Tempest. Let's focus more on Arc Hyperion because that's the arc we have the most information about. That's where the protagonists are. So Arc Hyperion, of course, is the human arc like we mentioned, but it also has other races aboard. So for example, you have an Asari doctor, Dr. Lexi Tapero, which is voiced by Natalie Dormer of Game of Thrones fame, which is awesome. Then we also have Calo Jath, which is going to be the Tempest pilot. We see him in the Tempest and Nomad Initiative briefing trailer. For the Pathfinder team aboard Arc Hyperion, their job is to find and secure potential golden worlds, habitats where humanity can start the settlement and colonization process, and they also act under their own authority. That little bit really reminds me of the Citadel Council Spectres. They kind of work for the council, do whatever for them, but they have their own authority. They act under their own authority. That's what Pathfinders are for the Andromeda Initiative. On Arc Hyperion, the human Pathfinder is Alec Ryder. He is a skilled N7 ranked soldier. He's a talented scientist, and he traveled through the Charon mass relay and took humanity's first steps throughout the Milky Way Galaxy. So it sounds like he is the perfect candidate to be the human Pathfinder. He's extremely experienced, he has the combat ability, and he is extremely smart. So that's Alec Ryder. Next is Liam Costa. He is the security and crisis response specialist. Apparently he's an idealist. We'll have to experience that when we actually see him in the game. He's also a multi-species expert who is handpicked by Alec Ryder. So he's someone that Alec Ryder definitely respects. Sara and Scott Ryder are the twin daughter and son of Alec Ryder. They are recruits. They joined the Systems Alliance military. Scott was assigned to the Arcturus Station Outpost to oversee the Relay 202. Sara joined the military to continue her search for Prothean technology, and she was placed in a support role for other Prothean researchers. Some additional info to keep in mind: whoever you pick out of these two to be your protagonist who you play as, the other one will still exist in the world, so they won't just not exist. They both exist no matter what your choice is. They're also recruits. They're only 22 years old. They were born in 2163. I mean, this whole initiative started when they were only, 13 years old. So these are inexperienced characters relative to everyone else. So they're going to be kind of experiencing things for the first time, and that's something that BioWare has explained for everyone else. Cora Harper is a biotic. She's the team's operations specialist, and she's a former officer in the Alliance military. She was transferred to the Citadel Council's Valkyrie program and placed with an Asari command unit for 4 years. So her training and experience makes her second in command to Alec Ryder, and she is the successor predecessor as the Pathfinder. That means that in theory, if anything were to happen to Alec Ryder, then she would become the new Pathfinder. But as we know, us, the protagonist, the player becomes the Pathfinder. So something goes on with Alec Ryder, and also whatever happens, doesn't allow for Cora to become the new Pathfinder, because the player will be the new Pathfinder. Side note, people have noticed that the Elusive Man's last name is also Harper, which has spurred speculation that she is related to the Elusive Man. We don't know that for sure, but if she is, that would be really interesting, because the Elusive Man is a massive villain in the original trilogy. Finally, we have SAM, which stands for Simulated Adaptive Matrix. This is kind of the new VI AI character aboard Hyperion, and it's really interesting. There are neural implants connected to Alec Ryder through his nervous system, circulation and endocrine functions, and exteroreceptive senses. There's a two-way connection between Alec Ryder and SAM synced with artificial intelligence. It's designed by Alec Ryder. There's a node in Hyperion that he communicates with. It sees and feels as Ryder does. It provides situational awareness, problem solving, and tactical enhancements. Everyone in the Pathfinder team is connected with SAM and can communicate with him, so it's going to be really cool to see how that works in game. The description of SAM also says that the first Pathfinder implants were created by a Dr. Ellen Ryder. I've been looking and I really can't find any more additional information about Dr. Ellen Ryder, but I have to assume that that is Mom. That is the mom of Sara and Scott. If it's not, maybe it's a sister of Alec Ryder. Alright guys, that's all we know about the Andromeda Initiative so far. I think it's going to be really interesting to see over the course of the game if the Andromeda Initiative's missions are actually completed. If they do complete the missions, if a connection is established between the Andromeda Galaxy and the Milky Way. That would be really interesting, and that could set up, the future of the Mass Effect franchise. I'm just talking in hypotheticals and speculation right now, but we'll see how the Andromeda Initiative is handled throughout the game. If you enjoyed this video, be sure and hit the like button, and also subscribe if you haven't already for more Andromeda content before release and tons more after. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.